All right, so first thing I'll talk to you about here is just percentage profit. So I've got an example here. GameStop buys a Nintendo Switch for €240 and sells it for €300. What is its percentage profit? So first step here will be to figure out its actual profit. So selling price is 300. Take away what we will call the cost price of 240. Okay, so selling price, what it sells it for, cost price, what it buys it in for. Or if it was a company that made its own stuff, cost price will be what it costs to make. But selling price take away cost price is €60. So there's your profit. Now, question is, what is its percentage profit? Okay, so you're going to put the profit over something and then multiply it by 100 to make it a percentage. What are you going to put the 60 over? So you could put the 60 over 240 and then multiply that by 100, or you could put the 60 over 300 and multiply by 100. Okay, and different people might be more inclined to do one or the other. Okay, both are correct, both are different types of percentage profit, but they have different names. Okay, so this one here, the 60 over 240, I'm putting the profit over the cost price, and that is called the markup. Okay, so markup is a type of percentage profit, and you get it by putting the profit over the cost price. All right, and then you'll always be multiplying it by 100 because you're always going to give it as a percentage. Okay, so that's your markup. And then the other one, then, if you were to put it over the 300, if you were to put it over the selling price, that's called the margin. So profit over selling price. And then again, you multiply it by 100 because you want that as a percentage. Okay, so there's two types of percentage profit that you need to be able to calculate. One of them is markup, one of them is margin. You need to learn these formulas, and very important, I would say, is to not get them mixed up as well. Okay, so it's very easy to learn the words markup, margin. One's profit over cost price, one's profit over selling price, and then mix them up. Okay, so when you're learning those, I would pay special attention to getting them clear in your head, which is which. Okay, I suppose, like, mark up, you are marking up the cost price. So you are taking that cost price, which would be lower, and then you are marking it up to get your selling price. Might be one small way of helping you remember it. Okay, but like I said, important for you to get those clear in your head. I'll figure out the markup and the margin for this example. So first one is 60 over 240. So that's 0.25 multiplied by 100, 25%. And then 60 over 300 is equal to, no, that's all right, 60 over 300 is equal to 0.2. So if you multiply that by 100 to get it as a percentage, 20%. Okay, so in this example here, 25% is my markup and 20% is my margin. Okay, so in the normal course of business, companies will sell things for more than they buy them. Okay, selling price should be bigger than cost price, and in that case, markup will always be bigger because you're putting the profit over a smaller number. You're putting the profit over cost price. Okay, so markup should be bigger than margin, unless the company is making a loss, in which case it would be flipped the other way around. Okay, what I would say is, if they just ask for percentage profit or percentage loss, it's usually the markup that they're looking for, but I don't think they would be that vague on a question. Okay, and look, I think if they asked for percentage profit and you gave either one, they'd have to give you marks. Both are types of percentage profit, but I do think on an exam question they would be more specific. They would ask for markup or they would ask for margin. Okay, so there's your two formulas. both types of percentage profit. You need to learn both of them, and as I say, you need to get both of them clear in your head. What I'm going to do now is just run through 3 examples on markup and margin that are in your book, and then I'll give you some questions to do. Okay, so the first example I'm going to do is on page 49 in your book. So it's page 49 and it's example 4. All right. So Caroline imports handheld tied flowers at a cost of €25 per bunch. She sells the flowers at €40 per bunch. And part 1 is just calculate the profit she makes. So selling price take away cost price is going to give you her profit. Okay, that should be kind of straightforward enough. Obvious. So selling price is 40, take away cost price of 25 gives a profit of €15 for each bunch of flowers. All right. Part 2 then is to calculate the markup. So markup is the profit over cost price. Okay, and then we're going to multiply it by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So profit is 15 over cost price is 25, and then multiply that by 100. So on your calculator, 50 over 25 is 3. 15 over 25 is equal to 3 over 5. 3 over 5, and if you press change, that's 0.6. Multiply that by 100, and you've got 60%. So the markup there is 60%. Part 3 then, calculate the margin. So margin is just profit over selling price multiplied by 100 to change it into a percentage. So the profit is 15, the selling price is 40 multiplied by 100. So 15 over 40 equals 3 over 8. 0.375, so you might be able to multiply that by 100 in your head. It's 37.5 or 37.5%. You can write it either way. So 37.5%. All right. The part 4 then, what do you notice about the value of the margin compared to the markup? Don't worry too much about that. It's just that the margin is lower than the markup. Okay, so whenever a company is making money, which should be most of the time, it should be selling most of their stock at a profit, or else they won't be in business. Okay, the margin will be lower than the markup because the profit is the same in both numbers. You're just changing what you're dividing it by. So if you divide it by a bigger number for margin, you get a smaller percentage. Okay, as I said, sometimes companies will have to sell stuff at a loss if they have too much of it and they have a sale. But most of their stuff should be sold at profit, and you'll have this case here where markup is bigger than margin. Okay, so the next 2 examples I'm going to do they probably both have one part like this, I think, and then maybe a slightly trickier part as well. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little bit of algebra on the next 2 parts, but that's your kind of basic example, the one I did on the last page, and this one here of how to use those 2 formulas. So what I'm doing now is page 50, example 5 in your textbook. So page 50, example 5. A retailer sells a notebook for €4.50. So sells a notebook for €4.50. So there's your selling price. And there's a profit margin of 33%. So margin is 33%. Okay, or I think they might give it as 33 and I'm working off the old textbook here. I think they write it as 33 and a third in yours. Find the profit made selling the notebook to the nearest cent and find the cost price of the notebook. So look, it's margin I'm given in the question. So, let's write the margin formula and see if that does anything for us. So margin equals profit over selling price multiplied by 100. Okay, so your margin of 33.33% is equal to profit, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to find out, over selling price, I know is 450, and then multiplied by 100. All right, so I've only got one unknown, so I'm able to solve this thing. All right. First thing I'll do is I've got multiplied by 100, so I'm going to bring that over here and divide by 100. Okay, I'm basically going to turn this into a decimal again. Okay, so 33.33. 33 and so 33 and a third, so 33 and a third would be 33.33333 kind of recurring. If you were to divide that by 100, you're going to get 0.333. So look, 0.333 is going to be enough, I would say, to get this answer accurate. Okay, so you could write, look, 33 and a third, you could write it as 1/3 as well if you want to write it as a fraction. But what I'm doing there is I'm changing my percentage back into a decimal. Okay, because remember, this part of the formula, profit over selling price, is going to give me a decimal. All right, so I'm bringing multiplied by 100 over and I'm dividing by 100. So 33 and a third divided by 100 is, like I said, it's the 3 is going to recur forever, but I'll go to 3 decimal places and that should get me close enough to the answer. So 0.333 is equal to the profit over 450. Okay, so I want to get the profit on its own. That's what I'm trying to solve for. So I'm going to bring the divided by 450 over. If you bring divided by 450 over, it becomes multiplied by 450. Or the other way to think about that is multiply both sides by 450 to get rid of the 450 underneath the fraction there. So you're going to bring it over and you're going to have 450 multiplied by 0.33. And that's going to give me my profit. So 450 multiplied by 0.33 is, it says, to the nearest cent. So the nearest cent, that's €1.49.85. So to the nearest cent, that's €1.50. Okay, so €1.50 is my profit. All right, so a kind of standard enough twist on a question there where I've been using the formula, plugging stuff into it. Now I'm given the answer and I'm missing something from the formula. Okay, and I was able to work back to what was missing, the profit. So that's part 1. Part 2 then is to find the cost price of the notebook. So cost price, so if you remember, selling price, takeaway cost price gives you your profit. So my selling price is 450. Take away my cost price is going to be equal to 150. And you could reorder that using algebra and solve it, but I think it's pretty obvious. From 450 take away something is 150. Your cost price is €3. All right, so that's page 50, example 5. Don't let the kind of multiply by 100 throw you off there. So just bring it over and divide. So just, like I said, this bit is going to give me a decimal, and the multiply by 100 is to turn it into a percentage. So I kind of went back to what's 33 and a third as a decimal equal to this. Okay, the last one then I'm going to do is page 51, example 6. So there's a nice kind of easier part to this, and then a slightly trickier part then as well. So I'm told in this example that a hardware store buys wooden picnic tables at a cost price of €140. And then in part one, I'm asked what's the selling price if I want to sell it with a 32% markup. So part one is asking me about markup, so let's write the markup formula. So markup is equal to profit over cost price multiplied by 100. So find the selling price if it's sold with a 32% markup. So 32 is equal to profit is what I'm trying to solve over cost price I'm given is 140 multiplied by 100. Okay, so bring the multiplied by 100 over and it becomes divided by 100. 32 divided by 100 is 0.32. So that's just 32% as a decimal is equal to profit over 140. So 0.32 equals P divided by 140. Bring the 140 over and it becomes multiplied by. So 0.32 multiplied by 140 is equal to your profit. And that is 44.80. All right. So that's part one. Done. Okay. So markup is what I was being asked to work with. So I wrote down the markup formula. I subbed in what I knew. I was only missing one thing, so it was just algebra to solve it. Okay, but don't try and shortcut a question like that by just going multiply 140 by 32% like that. All right, go through the steps, write down the formula, do it step by step, line by line. Next part then. So a 32% margin corrected in the nearest cent. So I'm dealing with margin here. So margin is equal to profit over selling price multiplied by 100. So my margin, the margin that I want in this part is also 32%. So 32 is equal to profit. I don't know. So this is a different situation. It's not the 44.80. Okay, if you're making a 32% margin, your profit must be different. So I don't know the profit. Selling price, I also don't know. Multiplied by 100. So this example is trickier than the last one. Why? Because it looks like I've got two unknowns and I'm not able to solve for two unknowns. Okay, but there must be some other way of getting at this. Okay, there must be some way of making sure I've only got one unknown. Okay, how do you get selling price? Okay, well, selling price is equal to your cost price plus your profit. Okay, so that kind of relationship exists. Selling price minus cost price is equal to profit, or looking at that another way, cost price plus the profit you make is your selling price. So if instead of writing selling price, I kind of break it up into cost price plus profit, I do know the cost price in this example, so I'm only going to have one unknown. Okay, so as I said, that's trickier to realize that, but that's what we're going to do next. All right, so look, I'm going to bring the multiplied by 100 over. 32 divided by 100 is 0.32, so that's just 32% as a decimal equals. So profit, I don't know. Selling price then I'm going to write as cost price plus profit, and then I know the cost price is 140. And now I've only got one unknown. Okay, so profit is the only unknown. It appears twice in the question, but it is only one unknown. So a couple of places you could go wrong in the algebra here. I've got profit divided by 140 plus P. You need to bring over the bottom of that fraction in its entirety. Okay, so you can't just bring the 140 over. You need to bring over, it's divided by all of this 140 plus p. So you need to bring all that over and multiply. So you're going to have 0.32 multiplied by 140 plus profit equals profit. Okay, so I just brought the bottom of that over and I'm multiplying the left hand side by it. I'm just left with the p then that was on top. So 0.32 multiplied by 140, if I do that on the calculator, is 4480. 0.32 by p is just 0.32p. Okay, so like 2 times x is 2x, 4 times x is 4x, 10 times x is 10x. 0.32 times p is 0.32p. Equals, I had p on the right hand side. Just going to write that as 1p. Okay, so you can write it as p or you can write it as 1p. That's going to make the next step maybe a little more clear. So I want to write, and I get anything with just a number on the left hand side, anything with a letter in it to the right hand side. So just whenever you're solving an algebra, it's numbers to one side, letters to the other. So you're leaving the 4480 where it is. And then you bring plus 0.32p over and it becomes minus 0.32p. Okay, so you've got 4480 equals 1p minus 0.32p. Well, like 5x minus 2x is 3x. 20x minus 5x is 15x. So 1p minus 0.32p, you're going to subtract the coefficients from each other, the numbers in front of them. So 1 minus 0.32 is 0.68. So 1p minus 0.32p is 0.68p. Okay, so you've got 4480 is equal to 0.68 multiplied by p. So I'm going to bring the 0.68 over and it's going to become divided by, I'm just going to finish this off up here, or a little bit more space. So bring the multiplied by 0.6 over to the other side and it becomes divided by. So 4480 divided by 0.68 is equal to p. So if you do 4480 divided by 0.68, you get to the nearest cent is what it says, 65.89. So a profit of 65.89, and then just be careful here. Question says it wants the selling price. So selling price is cost price plus profit. So you need to just add the 140 to that to get the selling price. So that's going to be €205.89 is your selling price. Okay, so this is the most important thing to get. Okay, how to use the two formulas. Okay, and whenever you're asked for markup or margin in a question, you need to write down the formula. Okay, if you put the formula down and sub anything into it correctly, you're going to get loads of attempt marks for a question like this. All right, so most important example to be able to do is this one. Okay, the example 5 then is a little bit trickier, but I think we should be able for it. Okay, so setting up the formula, subbing something in, working out something else. Okay, example 6 then, particularly the second part of it, is quite tricky. Okay, so that is quite a difficult example. So I wouldn't worry too much if you're finding that one difficult. I'm not sure if there's a question in the book like that. I'll set maybe one of them, but don't beat yourself up if you find that a little bit tricky. Okay, I would say the part 1 there, yeah, that's stuff we should be kind of reaching for and getting. The part 2 is tricky enough. If you get it, great. If you don't, we won't worry too much about that. As I say, learn markup, learn margin, difference between them, what the two formulas are, how to use them. Okay, that's the most important example for you to get for now.